What I want to talk about a little bit is the work around what I call transformational play, and why I think games is a part of a solution to a problem that's really plaguing our world in some ways, but certainly our school systems. Much of my career has been about reconnecting people with content and with the world in which that content has value. So what I'd like to do is dig a little bit deeper into some of those ideas with, again, this fundamental commitment to what I'll call unifying person, content, and context, and doing it in very transformative ways where the person has choice. The way that we think about taking up content isn't just procedural, but is also conceptual, critical, and ultimately consequential, because the contexts that we work with are changeable. And so that ability in a game world to take on identity, do something, and have the whole world change based on what I do is a very powerful opportunity and affordance. In a game, what I know, what I do, and who I become are all interrelated. And I can do that in a way that is possible in the context of a classroom experience with 30 other kids. And I can do that because I can preload that world so that it's pedagogically useful, and provide lots of kind of ongoing embedded assessment, feedback to the child about what they're doing. And that feedback is not simply that choice is right or wrong, but if you do that thing, A, it might show a misunderstanding of the concept, and B, it might unlock a future that you really don't want. And what's so powerful about games is they allow me, even in the context of a classroom, to allow a 10-year-old to become an environmental scientist, a persuasive writer, a doctor, and many times in ways that are much more rewarding and much more accommodating of failed moves than the real world would allow. So we did one game. It was a game about a river and a community in which fish were dying, and you had multiple stakeholders who lived around that river who all collectively had to figure out why fish were dying. But the park in which this river existed was underfunded, and the ranger needed help. So here I am as a 10-year-old, I log into a computer, and immediately I'm put into a role with agency. So I log in, and the ranger is like, "Oh, Sasha, I'm so glad you're here. We have this problem. I don't have any staff to figure it out. We're starting to have conflict among the stakeholders. Fish are dying. The loggers are blaming the farmers are blaming the fishers, and we need to get to the bottom of it." So in the game, you hear the concern, you go around, you talk to others, and the idea in the first part of the game is I'm trying to pass over an intention to the player that they're going to adopt. They're gonna take on that role because they see that problem as interesting, and then the rest of the gameplay is about realizing that role. So in the game, the first part of what we do is we kind of have this invitation to the player, and we try to say, we really want you to take on this role, but the contract is you're gonna have to do something. We invite you into this, but you're going to have to go do some hard science in this case. They actually have to build complex chains of reasoning where they're doing interviews with experts, they're analyzing textbooks, they're running simulations, and ultimately they're collecting data. And on that data, sometimes it can give me easy answers, but more interestingly is when there's lots of data to support a little bit of this hypothesis, a little bit of this, and kids start to understand science as a socio-scientific process. And as they make choices, because they are the protagonist in this narrative, in this unfolding narrative of the game world, they make choices, it actually changes the world. And if it changes it in a non-productive way, well, they can just try again. So a big part for me of bringing games to schools is changing a little bit about what we count as success. Our desire in schools to strip out all the particulars so we can just teach you distance, rate, time. 2 + 2 is 4. We get a more naked view of the concept that we're teaching, but we lose its meaning. And we don't help people develop a real understanding of what it is. Because it's not just a set of manipulations or numbers. It's actually a conceptual tool to solve problems that matter.